There are a couple new things that we added into level 3. We have timer doors now. So what timer doors are a door that activates a timer, and once the timer is done, the door closes. It's pretty straightforward. Next, we added heavy enemies. Now these guys take 2 hits, and they throw heavier objects, like monitors, plants, and desks. Finally, I'll run you guys through the 3rd level. If you guys have any comments or anything to add to the game, please let me know down below, as all of your input really does help. If you'd like to skip through the gameplay portion of this, feel free to skip to this time, as I will be talking about the code for the enemies and the timer door. There are quite a few components that go into this timer door here. It consists of the render component, a paper flip book, a collision box, a sprite, and the timer widget. So this is the code for the timer door. Now what this does is it initializes the clock on top of the door. So what it does is it gets our initial time from the button hazard, which is the button that is associated to the door. And it takes that, it converts it to text, and then it updates the time on the door at the beginning of play, leaving you with the timer that is static. On top of that, we also have these functions here that we will be using in the button blueprint to actually open and close the door. This is the button hazard that is associated with the door. This also has quite a few components. Those include the default scene root, the timer widget, the timer background sprite, the item sprite, the box collision, the press E flipbook, and the item flipbook. This is the begin play code of our button hazard. So at the beginning of play, the button hazard does everything that the base interactable item does, plus everything else that I've added onto it. So everything past this parent begin play is everything specific to the button hazard. Now, what we do is we take the flipbook and we set it to the idle state because nothing has happened. We create the timer button widget and set it to a variable. Then we get our initial time that is set in the level on each specific button and door. We get that time and we set it to countdown time. Now countdown time is then converted into text and updates the text on the button. Now this is the interact code that we use to open and close the door, depending on if the player has pressed E on the actual button. When the player interacts with the button, it updates the countdown. Now what that does is that it creates the actual timer, converts it to text, and then updates the countdown, so it starts counting down. From then on, we set the press E flipbook to not activated, and then we make sure that the door to open is valid. From then on, we set the timer button flipbook to clicked, and then we open the door, which plays the door opening animation. From then on, we add a 2.3 second delay. That is how long the door is open. We do door open, which leaves the door open. From there, we basically set a timer by function name, which is the closed door timer over. So what that does is that it closes the door and it runs for the countdown time. So it's connected to the door itself for the actual amount of time that it's open. And finally, we have the heavy office workers. Now, the heavy office workers don't really have a whole lot of code to them. And that is because they are a child of the normal office worker, which means that all of the code that is in there is already in the heavy enemy, which meant I didn't have to do a whole lot of work for this one, which was really nice. That being said, there was some heavy lifting I had to do to get the different sprites to show up. So what we do is we get the length of an array that is a struct. So what I have in this struct are 12 different sets of animations that we can use for our office worker. On top of that, it also has a projectile class that we can use to set what projectile we want the enemy to throw. We get a random value that is associated with a value in our struct, i.e. our index. From there, we get a random index number, and we set our actual flip books that we would like into a cached flip book. And what that does is that it saves our values that we want and sets them at beginning of play for all of the enemies. So that is it for level 3. If you guys enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking and commenting. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.